speaker is Marnie Kurylo from Savvy Space Solutions. She is the owner and she offers professional organizing services for organizing and decluttering clients' homes and small businesses throughout Metro Vancouver since 2005. So without further ado, Marnie.
My name is Marnie Kurylo and I'm with Savvy Space Solutions. I help people and businesses to declutter and organize their space. Okay. Today I'm going to be talking about living in a condo because I'm here at the Quayside board. And living in a condo is actually quite different than living in a house. Most of you probably downsize to the Quay. And when you downsize, you changed your lifestyle. You no longer have a yard and a garden. You don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to do the roof. That's up to someone else, right? So you've left behind those responsibilities. Many people, when they downsize, have also either retired or switched jobs. So you are changing your job situation, and that is also changing your lifestyle as well. Okay, so you're not just changing the space that you're living in, you actually are changing your life, and you have to consider that when you're planning your space. Now, when you're living in a condo, you may have moved a year or two ago, and then you're probably still in the stages of unpacking. That's not unusual to still have boxes 2 years from moving, okay? So you need to actually unpack, finish that. If you have been in your condo for 5 or 10 plus years, you are fully living in that space. And what you need, one of the first things that you need to do to reclaim that space is to declutter. Most people don't want to hear that word because they just want their space to be fun and beautiful and go straight to fun containers. But what you really need to do is to look to see what you actually do need in your space and whether or not you're using what you have in your space. Because a lot of us have things in our homes and our offices that are just there. They don't actually get used. They're not actually necessarily wanted or sometimes even liked, but they are there. So you want to have a look and see what you're actually having in your space. You want to declutter. Start easy, start small. I always say, start with the base cell containers. Who has a cupboard of excess base cell containers in their home? You're lying, most of you do, okay? So what you should do is really start easy. Make the recycling box your friend. It's going to be a huge help to you when you're decluttering. So keep 1 or 2 containers because they're great for the freezer. But you know what? You're always going to be buying another container of margarine. So you're not going to need to keep a whole cupboard full. I see giggling. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, this goes for Chinese food containers. This goes for elastic bands and paper clips. How much do you really need of certain things? Okay, so start easy, start small. Who has a phone book? Who uses it? Excellent. You get to keep yours. Thank you, by the way, for making me follow Gerta, because, you know, she's fabulous. What an act to follow. So you're going to want to look and see what's there. You're going to want to recycle. You're going to want to look to see how much of excess of everything you have. And I'm talking about your kitchen, your closet, what in your wardrobe do you actually wear. Most people wear 20% of their clothing 80% of the time. So look to see what you have in your closet. If you've been living in your condo for 5-10 years, do you have clothing in there that you were wearing when you were working and now you're not? Okay? So think about what's there. So when When you're living in a condo though, the biggest thing and difference about living in a condo towards whereas you're living in a house is less space, right? Now, many condos, most of them now are getting even smaller and smaller. Some are about the size of a small house, which is great, but the layout is different. Maybe the rooms are smaller, maybe the layout is slightly different, so you don't necessarily have the space that you used to have. You don't have an attic, you don't have a garage, okay? You may or may not have a spare room. So you need to maximize your space. So I want you to think about everything having two uses, okay? And this can apply to small things in your home, but it can also apply to large things as well. If you have a spare room, it probably is doubling as an office or storage, things like that. But you know, maybe you don't have a spare room. Maybe you used to have an office, but now your office is your dining room table. And that's okay, because it happens. That's the reality of your space. But I also want you to think about the practicality of your dining room, okay? Because if you have a separate dining room and you're still thinking of it as your dining room, but you're using it 360 days out of the year as an office, maybe you're having people over 5 times a year for dinner. So in reality, that's not a dining room, that's your office. And I want you to think about that, okay? So where are you going to put the stuff? Okay. Maybe that sideboard, instead of holding guest dishes, should actually be holding the office supplies and printer, right? Maybe because you're in a condo and things are tight, maybe you should graduate from having guest dishes. Who has a set of everyday dishes and a set of guest dishes or best? Yeah. Don't you deserve to use the best every day? There are so many options now for beautiful dishes that you can use and have and enjoy every day that you would love to actually use when you have guests. So my challenge to you is to have one set of dishes for you and for guests, okay? Because if you can have one set of dishes, you've immediately halved the storage capacity that you need to store stuff for your kitchen, right there. And that's huge when you live in a condo. And you've just opened up a whole bunch of room in your dining room for your office supplies, right? Okay? And the thing about new dishes is that these dishes, doesn't matter what style you look at, whether you like really curly Q or fancy wonderful colors, or you like stoneware, they're going to reflect you. And when you invite somebody to your house, they know you. So if your dishes reflect you, then that's wonderful. And these dishes are mostly, the new ones, most of them are dishwasher safe and microwave safe. How many of you can say that about your good dishes? You're probably washing them by hand, right? So think about what you do in your house and how you want to live in your house, what you actually do use your home for, and have your space reflect that. Okay? So when you're thinking about pieces having more than one function, we're also talking about furniture, right? Everybody knows that ottomans can have storage, right? So if you have a living room set that had an ottoman with it and it doesn't have storage, why are you keeping it? Swap it out for one that does, okay? Think about ways that you can increase storage and not necessarily have it look like storage in your home, because that's not what you want, right? You want your home to look like your home. You don't want it to look like a warehouse of storage. But there are many ways that you can incorporate storage, and it doesn't necessarily scream, I've got a bunch of stuff, right? If you have 2 armchairs in your living room and you're simply using a table in between, maybe a small dresser would work as well, and you'd increase storage. You can also look at new furniture that is coming out. It's being more and more available in Canada now, furniture that's coming from Europe, and it's very multifunctional because of the small spaces there. If you have a coffee table that is simply a table, you can invest in a table that is not only storage, but the lid will also lift up and become a TV tray or second table. Okay, so that gives you 3 different options. Okay, so it's a coffee table, it's storage, as well as TV trays, and it's not taking up any more space. These are things that you can incorporate into your home that don't take up any more space, but they go with the flow of the way you live, and they actually do give you more in your space. They maximize the space that you have. Okay? But thank you very much for having me come out, and remember, whenever you do anything for decluttering or organizing, remember that it's going to take you more time than you think, so give yourself the time. Okay? Thank you very much.